Hey, kia ora, Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from, oh God, where am I? Desert Springs in California. Yeah, we were on the road again today. Sorry, I am like whacked out tonight. I just tired. It was exhausting today. I had plans of getting out early and everything, and then I saw a posting in the Polka Dots Powerhouse thing about a Zoom they were doing this morning, so I got on and did that. And they said it started at 8:30 Pacific, and I thought, yes, I can do that. I can watch it, and then I can get on the road, forgetting that I was on Mountain Time. So I'm on at 8:30 Mountain Time. There's nobody there, and I'm like, this is not right. And then I suddenly realized that I was on Mountain Time, and they said 8:30 Pacific. So I got everything else done, and then sat on the Zoom, which was an hour and a half. And then as soon as that was finished, went outside, unplugged everything, took the tire covers off, got everything packed up because everything inside was done. And I was on the road probably about 20 minutes later, and got onto the 10 and knew that the inspection thing was coming up, getting into California, and it's across the Colorado River, and it says quarter mile to the inspection station or half a mile to the inspection station or whatever. So I'm thinking, oh great, I'm going to get questioned like I do when I come into California with sparkles. And so pull up to the thing, took my sunglasses off, opened up my side window and went, good morning. And he says, thank you very much, you may go. I was like, thank you, and off I went. So normally they stop and they ask you and grill you. Last time I came in, it was tomatoes and avocados, which was the same question we got when we came from Canada into the US. Then when we went from Oregon into California, it was tomatoes and avocados again as well. Apparently there's some disease in avocados and tomatoes they don't want spreading. So, but I never got asked any of those questions this time. I just got, thank you very much. Have a great, you can go. So it's like, sweet, done. The drive itself was really good. Total drive time was just under 3 hours. I did stop at a rest area and have lunch. I actually drove for an hour and a half. So I got to my second rest area, because the first one was like 30 minutes down the road, and I was like, yeah, no. So it was actually an hour and a half. I got to the rest area, pulled in, had lunch, and then needed to go to Walmart to get my tension rod for my drape. So figured out where that was, went and stopped there and did that, and now my curtain hangs so much better now. It's all up with the right tension rod on and everything. It looks awesome. Looks even better than it did the other day. And so I got that sorted out, picked up another couple of grocery things that I couldn't get the other day, and was in and out in 20 minutes, back on the road again. And then it took me off the 10. And when I went off the exit, I thought, I know this exit. This is the exit I got off on when I went to Palm Springs on my way to Arizona. And I went down to and you come off, and this time when I went to the traffic light, instead of going right to go down to the, then you go right and then you just follow that road all the way down to the campground I stayed at when I was in Arizona. I went left, and going along this road, it was pretty good. It was like 55 was the mile thing. It was only a little narrow 2-lane road. Pavement was good. And then all of a sudden we went on the crappy pavement. It was broken up on both sides of the road, and I slowed all the way down to like 45. There's nowhere anybody could overtake me unless we were in a passing area where they had the dash lines and they could safely overtake me, but there were cars coming the other way. So, and there was nowhere on the shoulder for me to pull over. So these poor people had to suffer behind me going 40, because I'm going along on this broken road, and I wasn't going to go any faster because I didn't want to damage any of Sprockle's bits and pieces. And so then all of a sudden we came across this nice smooth bit again. I'm like, yes, this is awesome. And like, we just keep going and going and going. It says I had to go 6 miles down this road. Then I had to take a right turn. Then we got onto the smooth bit again. And then we had to go 6 miles down this way. And then we had to take another right turn. And then we had to go like, it was like, where the heck is this thing taking me? Oh, we went through the middle of a field of windmill, of the power windmill things. And I'm like, this is like way out of Palm Springs. Why the heck is this place called Palm Springs? And oops, and it turned out we were actually in nearing Desert Springs. So I got on the edge of Desert Springs, took a right turn, and got down to the KOA. But yeah, it was like 6 miles this way, 6 miles that way, 5 miles that way, 3 miles this way. And I was like, it's going like the back of beyond. But yeah, surprisingly enough, we have phone reception, we have internet connections. So, it'll be a good day. So got here. There's like nobody here in this campground. There's probably coming in because they escorted me down to where the park was. There's like over 200 sites at this place, almost 300 sites at this place. I would say maybe 30 of them are filled. It's maybe at 10% capacity. It's like nobody's here. I mean, I've got my spot here, and then 4 spots that way. There's another RV. There's an RV across just over here, and the next closest RV is up against the fence line over here because I'm the second one from the corner. Then there's a row that goes along the hedge line, and it's probably about 5 or 6 up. So within, I've only got 3 that are kind of in any close proximity to me. So I thought, well, this makes things a little quiet. Well off the road, so away from freeways and no freeway traffic. I haven't really heard any, had a little bit here and there. Looks like a nice place. I haven't gone out for a wander yet. I was just exhausted. I've just been exhausted because I was dehydrated. So I've been drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking lots and lots and lots of water. I'm going to go make a shake shortly because I just realized that I actually fell asleep earlier. I got everything set up, dumped my tanks because my tanks needed dumping. They were smelling. And when I checked my monitors, I realized that my grey tank was full and my black tank wasn't. So I went out and when I hooked everything up, I dumped the tanks. So that's one less thing I'm going to have to do in 2 days. It's done for I have to dump it like every 5 to 7 days, depending on how much water I use, I guess. That's the grey tank. The blank tank you're supposed to empty when it's full, but I don't want to have to do it on half of a grey tank because you empty the black tank first, and then the grey tank washes through the joint because you've got the black tank comes in here, the grey tank comes in here, then they're on a Y piece, and so you close off the black tank, and then the grey tank empties and it washes out all that Y piece area and down the hose. So I like to have my grey tank full when I emptying the black tank. It just cleans everything else out nicely. What else did we do? And that was pretty much it. I watched the making of The Spy Who Loved Me. That was very interesting because I was trying to figure out, because they were trying to do a James Bond every year or so. Every couple of, it was at one point it was every year, then it went every couple of years, and then between The Man with the Golden Gun and The Spy Who Loved Me, there was a 3-year gap. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. And at the end of The Man with the Golden Gun, they said that it was the last film that Saltzman and Broccoli made together, and they split after that. And I thought, oh, that's an interesting story right there. I don't know what it is, but so anyway, so I watched that, took down my notes, and we'll go over those in a minute. And then I fell asleep. I woke up when my phone went ding to remind me I had to get on in half an hour. So I woke up like 20 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago, and thought, oh, yes, maybe we'll sleep tonight, maybe we won't, we shall see. And then I realized I'd slept through dinner and everything, so after this I'm going to go make myself a protein shake, and I'm probably just going to sit and read. I don't have the capacity tonight to watch a James Bond movie. I don't think I can stay awake for the 2+ hours of a James Bond movie. But back to The Spy That Loved Me. Oh my gosh, what a story on the making of this thing. The legal battles and everything else that went on. It was just like, are you kidding me? There was just like one thing after another. So, but Roger Moore says that said that it was one of the best James. He calls this his best James Bond movie ever. It is a really good movie. I loved it. It's one of my favorites. I have a lot. Let's see, Man with the Golden Gun came out in 1974. So in spring of 1975, they began pre-production, but then they kind of ended up with this big legal issue because Harry Saltzman was in this massive debt. He had these other businesses that were going and they were folding, and He had pledged some of his stock in the production company to guarantee his loan. His wife was going through breast cancer at the time. They ended up having to put the production company into liquidation, so they couldn't make any James Bond movies during the time that it was in liquidation and all of that. And then when they finally got all the legalities and everything sorted out, Broccoli had secured the company, secured all the rights for the James Bond movies, and Saltzman was out. But just when you think we're good to go, so they're looking at making The Spy Who Loved Me, but they had a problem because they weren't out of the woods yet. They still had 2 legal battles to go. It was just fascinating just watching this making of thing and hearing all of these obstacles that they had to overcome. So one of the obstacles they had to overcome was there was a clause in Ian Fleming's agreement with them on The Spy Who Loved Me that said no portion of his novel could be adapted into a screenplay, which means for The Spy Who Loved Me, they had to come up with a completely new concept. They had to come up with a completely new story and everything else. So they finally, and Broccoli had to supervise the whole thing with the screenwriters to make sure there was nothing from the book was added in there, and it was a totally original storyline. So they, by this stage, Guy Hamilton had left, and they brought back Lewis Gilbert, who did Only Live Twice, with that huge volcano inside the volcano scene and everything else. They found out that there was the Japanese in Okinawa had developed the sea laboratory that would rise up, and that sort of became the basis for Atlantis in this movie, with the bad guy in Atlantis. They decided, with the writers that they brought on board, they decided to make James Bond a smooth Englishman and give him these little one-liners and everything else. Yes, Jean, they could use the title. They used the title. They couldn't use anything out of the book. They were allowed to use the title, but nothing out of the book. It was really weird. This way, by making James Bond more of a smooth Englishman and giving him these little quirky one-liners that Roger Moore just delivers beautifully, they were able to get more away from him being Sean Connery's replacement. He was able to make James Bond his own character, which was kind of cool. Then when they had the script ready, they're ready to start shooting and all of that, up pops Kevin McCleary, who was involved in other litigation with them earlier on in the James Bond movies. He slapped a lawsuit on there for plagiarism and on the script, saying that he had written the script ages ago, and they slapped an injunction on them, so they had to go back to court. So they're in court. They won the battled the injunction. It was denied, and they were now able to finally start filming. Then they needed this big opening scene, because James Bond's first opening scene has to be epic, just like the endings. So they have these epic openings and these epic endings, and so they had another epic opening, and they were trying to figure out what to do, and they came up with this. And one of the stuntmen, Rick Sylvester, who does a lot of the ski stunts that they do, talked about, they somehow came up with the idea of this guy going off the cliff, basically base jumping off skiing down this mountain, going over the edge of this cliff, and basically base jumping off this mountain and putting up the parachute and everything else. And so they looked to Rick Sylvester and said, "Can you do this?" He said, "I've never done it before, but yes, I will do it." And he said, "But there's only one place that we can do this," and it was someplace up somewhere really northern Canada, but you only had a 6-week window in order to shoot this thing, because the weather would close in on this place. So they go up there, they're getting ready to do the stunt, and the weather's closed in on them. And of course, meanwhile, back in London, Broccoli's thinking, oh my gosh, he's going to back out. He doesn't want to do it. It's not worth him risking his life. He doesn't think he can do it anymore, so we don't want him to risk his life. So he calls up Sylvester and says to him, "Look, can you really do this?" And he said, "Yes, I can do this." And he said, "Okay." He said, "I don't want you to put your life on the line. If we'll come up with something else, it's okay." And Sylvester said, "We're just waiting for the wind to die down." And the next day they woke up, gorgeous day, no wind. They had 4 cameras set up. They did 1 take, 1 camera, done. Because the other 3 cameras didn't capture there was something wrong with how them missing the actual stunt. One camera caught the stunt. It was one take the entire way through, from when he comes down the ski thing over the cliff, drops down to when the parachute opens with the Union Jack on the back of the parachute. It was all one take. One take, uncut, one camera. I thought brilliant, and it looked epic. It did look amazing, even though I've only got it on a little 36-inch screen up there. There's times I really miss my big 63-inch TV thing. And so one thing that they did do is that within Ian Fleming's book, The Spy Who Loved Me, they had a character there called Horror who had wire in his mouth and had these wire on his teeth or something like that. So they kind of borrowed Horror, turned him into Jaws, and gave him a metal mouth where he's got the teeth. And this is where they brought in Richard Kiel, who's 7'2", to Roger Moore's was he 6'1" or 6'2"? I know he's shorter than Sean Connery, because Sean Connery is the tallest James Bond they've ever had. And so they brought him in, and he said that wearing the teeth were really, really uncomfortable. And but he had to do it for the character. So within 30 seconds of putting these things in his mouth would start hurting and all this sort of stuff. And so that was kind of cool. And they were looking at who they could get to play Anya, who was the James Bond's Russian equivalent. And a friend of a friend said, "Oh, you got to check out this girl," and brought in Barbara Bach. And they did a screen test on her. Boom, she had it. And then they were looking for a super tanker to that they could use to do this fight scene. They were going to do this fight scene on top of the tanker. Their idea was at the end to do this big fight scene on top of the tanker. But the problem is that when the tanker is empty, it's highly explosive because of all the gases that are inside and everything else. So the company that had agreed to allow them to use the tanker wanted £50,000 a day for insurance. And they said, even though James Bond has a really big budget, our budget ain't that big. So the whole thing was done with models. The outside scenes of the tanker and all of that, with the submarines, opening of the front of the thing, swallowing the submarine up, all done with models. And they said that when they actually did the premiere and they brought in the oil companies to show them this movie and how they did the tanker and everything else, they were sort of like, "Who did you end up getting your tanker from? Because you didn't use our tanker. Where did you get your tanker from?" They said it was a model. And they're like, no way. They could not believe that they had made this super tanker model that could house 3 submarines and all of this sort of thing. They could not believe the whole thing was done with a model. So that was kind of cool. They also practiced a lot of fight scenes and all that, and for some reason they like doing fights in trains. But they said, it's a James Bond thing. You have all these fights in trains, but they're always done differently. And I'm like thinking, yeah, they always end up going out the window though. And Bob Simmons, who was just under 6 foot, actually doubled for Richard Kiel, who was 7'2", in some of the things. And it's and it was all done with camera angles and and all of that sort of stuff on making Bob Simmons look like he was Richard Kiel from behind and all that sort of stuff as they're doing all these fight scenes and stuff. They, of course, the biggest thing that was in this was the handmade Lotus Esprit that they used as the submarine. And they actually were using one and decided they needed a second one. So went back to the company and said, "We need a second one." And they said, "Well, these are handmade and it's going to be this long to take it." And they go, "Well, doesn't your chairman have one?" And they said, "Yeah, he does." So they asked him, and he said if they could use his Lotus Esprit. He went, "Sure, go for it." And but they did make up models, and it's the models that you see in the underwater scene. They actually built a shell and took it down to the submarine place where they had it outfitted with engines and stuff that could allow it to go underwater. And they had a couple of guys sitting in scuba gear underwater driving this thing. And then there's this guy, Victor Turjansky. And if you're watching the movie when the Esprit comes out of the water, he's the guy that's sitting on the beach there with the bottle in his hand, drinks out of the bottle, puts the bottle down, looks at the thing, does a double take, looks at his bottle, looks back at the Esprit again. He does that in 2 more movies. You actually see him in Moonraker and For Your Eyes Only, in different locations doing the exact same thing. taking the drink out of the bottle, looking at whatever just took place, shaking his head, doing double take, looking back at the bottle, looking back at whatever just happened. He does it in 2 more movies, and he's actually one of the assistant directors or producers or somewhere. He's actually a crew member. But some of the actors wouldn't show up, so they'd use crew members every now and again for extras when they're supposed to be having actors in there. And they liked what he did in that, so they ended up using him in Moonraker and For Your Eyes Only. So now when I watch Moonraker and For Your Eyes Only, I'm going to be keeping an eye out for Victor. Yes, they did the models and all of that. They had fun when they went to Egypt because the food was horrific. They said the food was really inedible. It was horrible. So Cubby Broccoli sent over a catering van. They thought, oh, great, we're going to get this lamb, we're going to get stews, we're going to get this and that. They opened up the truck, it was empty. So Cubby Broccoli ended up flying out to Egypt, and he said, we can't have this. So he ends up making spaghetti and tomato sauce from scratch for the crew, but they had to go find all the ingredients. They actually had to get the pasta shipped into Egypt so that he could make this spaghetti and sauce thing. Then they went and built the inside of the tanker on the stage set, and they called it the 007 stage, and they actually designed the stage around the set. And they launched 007 stage launched on December the 5th, 1976. They had this huge contingency of dignitaries and celebrities and everything else, and some former prime minister actually opened the thing so they could start, and then they started doing all the taping and all of that. And then the movie ended up getting nominated in the Oscars for Best Original Score, Best Original Song, and Best Art Direction and Set Decoration by Ken Adams and his team for that huge, amazing set that they did. And it ended up premiering on July 7th, 1977. And it didn't win any of the Oscars because in 1978, Star Wars did a big sweep at the Oscars that year. And of course won multitudes of Oscars for all of their thing. But the thing that I thought was kind of cute, at the end of the movie, they always say which movie's going to come up next. So they said, end of Spy Who Loves Me. James Bond will return and For Your Eyes Only. And I'm sitting there going, hang on, the next one's Moonraker. What the heck's up with this? And what happened, in some reading that I did beforehand to figure out, what happened, is because Star Wars was so popular, they went with making Moonraker over making For Your Eyes Only. Even though they were planning to make For Your Eyes Only next, they went and made Moonraker instead. So, so that's the background on the Spy Who Loved Me. Great movie, and everybody on the production team reckons it was one of the best Bond movies made, and they think the reason that it ended up being one of the best they did was because of all the legal battles it had beforehand, and now Cubby Broccoli was entirely responsible for the whole James Bond franchise, and he was either going to make it or break it. And so everybody just thought, we've been through these legal battles, they all dug in, they gave their best, and that's why it ended up being such a great movie. And it's an awesome movie. So we are now 10 Bond movies down out of 24, plus the 2 extras that are coming at the end of the month. I have got Moonraker queued up. I don't know if I'm awake enough to watch it. I really don't. I may watch some of it tonight and watch the rest of it tomorrow morning. I don't know. Tomorrow's more of an R&R day. I'm just going to kick back, relax a little bit, get some work. I got a little bit of work done to do. I've got some connections to make with my polka dot powerhouse people, which is really, really cool. So I'm enjoying getting to know some of my polka dot powerhouse people, getting out there and networking. Even though some of it's getting done on Zoom, it's okay. We get on Zoom and we've got a 2-way conversation, go and have a cup of coffee and get that done. So I may or may not have some information on Moonraker tomorrow night. I don't know. We shall see. But interesting little tidbit is that Roger Moore's favorite James Bond movie that he did was The Spy Who Loved Me. The one he liked the least was A View to a Kill, which was his last one that he did. So I'm looking forward to getting towards A View to a Kill and the story behind it, to hear why he didn't like that one as much. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. And but anyway, that's it from me for tonight. I am tucked away here in Desert Springs, California, on my way home. Thursday we head down to Temecula. Animal will get taken out of storage at that time. I'll be collecting all my mail. I'm going to have to put aside a day just to do mail. I know there's going to be a lot there. I get a lot of mail, a lot of trade mail and all that sort of stuff. So yes, that's going to be, the shredder's going to be coming out that day. I can guarantee I'm going to be sitting here with the letter opener and the letter opener on one side, the shredder on the other side, and the filing over here and to do over here. And it's going to be a day of just sitting down, and I know I'm going to have a huge stack of brochures and magazines to go through and all that sort of stuff. But it's, once I get out of this, figure out who my mail forwarding service is going to be, then it'll be good. But been enjoying this adventure. If you check out my Facebook page, I did put on there the map that I'm putting the stickers in on and everything, and so Sparkles has earned her Arizona sticker. I still have to find the Canada outline to go above the US part, so I can put British Columbia on there as well, because she did earn that one too. So yeah, so I've got to go find the Canadian one so I can get that one put on there and put that above. I think I left room on the, oh yeah, looks like I did leave room on the door to put the Canadian portion above it. So anyway, that's it from me for tonight. I am going to go get a protein shake, and then I'll see how I feel and see how much of Moonraker I may or may not watch tonight. I might put it off till tomorrow night, because I do have some days built in. But Thanksgiving I won't be watching a movie, because that's family time. But anyway, have a super fantastic sparkling evening, and we will catch you all tomorrow. He konera.